The perfect illusion. The image is perfect. The star descends the staircase in a gown that costs more than a working family earns in a year. The flashbulbs detonate like artillery. The smile is flawless. Everything gleams. But behind every frame of that manufactured perfection, there are phone calls made at 3 in the morning, men in dark suits arriving at crime scenes before the police, journalists handed envelopes stuffed with cash. The golden age of Hollywood doesn't just produce some of the greatest films ever made. It produces one of the most sophisticated systems of institutional cover-up in American history. These men are called fixers, and what they actually do is darker, stranger, and more consequential than anything their studios ever dare put on screen. The empire behind the screen. By the late 1920s, the Hollywood studio system is not merely an entertainment business. It is a vertical empire. MGM, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and Fox collectively own the sound stages, the distribution networks, the theater chains, and the contracts of every actor who draws a paycheck in this town. Louis B. Mayer's biggest stars are not celebrities. They are global economic assets. A single scandal can tank the box office on a dozen films simultaneously. The studio has invested millions building these public personas. It will not let reality interfere. The early 1920s have already delivered Hollywood's brutal lesson. The Fatty Arbuckle scandal proves with terrible clarity what unchecked scandal can do. Arbuckle is legally acquitted. It doesn't matter. His career is destroyed. The studios watch. They learn. They will not be caught unprepared again. The man who builds the solution at MGM is not glamorous. He is barely known outside the industry, and that anonymity is, by design, his most essential quality. Eddie Mannix arrives as a blunt-spoken strong man from New Jersey, rises to general manager, and assumes a function the studio will never commit to paper. Howard Strickling operates beside him as head of publicity, with every major Hollywood columnist, Luella Parsons, Hedda Hopper, on a string. Together they form what insiders call, never in print, the cleanup committee. Strickling understands that controlling the press means controlling public reality. Whatever he decides happened is what happened. The fundamental lie. The system runs on one fundamental lie, told so consistently and so beautifully that it becomes accepted as truth. The person you see on screen is the person who actually exists. Clark Gable lives under control so total it borders on ownership. The studio approves his relationships, manages his marriages, deploys him like a chess piece. Joan Crawford is sold as the resilient shopgirl who clawed her way to the top, while the studio holds leverage over her early career that she spends decades never mentioning publicly. Judy Garland is 15 when MGM begins systematically destroying her body in the name of maintaining a screen image. Studio doctors prescribe amphetamines to suppress her appetite, barbiturates to help her sleep. She is cycled between stimulants and sedatives for years and will spend the rest of her life fighting the addiction this system creates. The persona isn't just a lie. It is a cage, and the fixers are the men who keep the cage door locked. The night everything changed. The night of September 4th, 1932, is the night the fixer system is truly, irreversibly institutionalized. Jean Harlow's husband, producer Paul Byrne, is found dead in the bedroom of their Benedict Canyon home, shot in the head, a cryptic note nearby. Howard Strickling receives the phone call before the Los Angeles Police Department does. Let that land. The head of publicity for a film studio learns of a suspicious death before law enforcement is notified. Strickling and Mannix arrive while the body is still present. They assess, they arrange. By the time police arrive, the narrative is already constructed. The death is ruled a suicide. Questions about a woman named Dorothy Millette, found dead in the Sacramento River 2 days later, are managed with breathtaking efficiency. Harlow is back on set within weeks. The LAPD's complicity is secured through years of transactional relationships, gifts, favors, flattering depictions of law enforcement on screen. It is not a formal arrangement. It doesn't need to be. Everyone understands the calculus. After Byrne, Mannix, and Strickling know exactly what they are capable of. The template is set, and it changes everything. A parallel justice system. What follows over the next 2 decades is a catalog of interventions so extensive it constitutes a parallel justice system operating entirely outside the law. Paternity suits are settled quietly through intermediary lawyers, women relocated, documents destroyed. Drunk driving arrests are intercepted before booking. Studio lawyers materialize at police stations in the middle of the night. Charges evaporate. Officers find their memory of the evening suddenly unclear. When Gable is involved in a serious car accident in which a passenger is killed, Mannix's machinery activates instantly. Legal exposure is minimized. The studio's asset is protected. The human cost is something the fixer operation is not designed to calculate. Sexual violence accusations against powerful men, including Mayer himself, credibly accused by multiple women, never reach newspapers or courts. They surface decades later in memoirs, voices finally free of the contractual terror that silenced them. Strickling's team doesn't just manage the press. They manage the accusers, isolating them and making clear that cooperation is the only rational choice available. The management of homosexuality is perhaps the system's most dehumanizing project. The studios understand that many of their most valuable male stars are gay, which under the legal codes of the era represents not just scandal, but criminal exposure. The solution is systematic: lavender marriages, arranged unions between gay male stars and women who may or may not fully understand the terms. Some enter with mutual consent. Many are deceived or given no real choice. Private investigators monitor stars' personal lives to prevent exposure, revealing the fixer system's deepest truth. The apparatus that protects you also surveils you. Protection and control are inseparable. You cannot have one without the other. Hidden in plain sight. The system leaves traces if you know where to look. Watch Judy Garland in her early 1940s, MGM Productions. There are moments where something flickers behind her eyes that doesn't belong in the scene, a micro-expression of exhaustion so profound it transcends acting. They survive the editing bay because they are too brief to cut. They are hidden in plain sight in some of the most beloved films ever made. Read any major fan magazine profile from 1935 to 1955 and notice the systematic use of passive voice. Stars do not leave spouses. The couple has announced a mutual and amicable separation. Stars are not arrested. There was an incident that has since been resolved. The active voice, which insists on agency and consequence, is replaced with fog. The fixer's hand is on every page. And then there are the photographs that don't exist, the gaps in every major star's archive where events clearly occurred, but no visual record survives. Strickling cultivates relationships with photographers to ensure certain frames are never developed, certain negatives purchased or destroyed. The gaps are themselves evidence. Negative space shaped by deliberate erasure. Mutual blackmail. The deepest conflict the fixer system generates is not between the studios and the outside world. It is between the studios and the human beings they claim to protect. The stars always know what the studio holds over them. The relationship is, at its core, mutual blackmail. The studio keeps your secrets. You stay in line. You don't leave without permission. You perform. This is the production nightmare at the heart of the enterprise. The studio needs human beings capable of authentic emotion while simultaneously demanding they surrender all authentic living. The greatest performances come from real people experiencing real things. The system extracts the performance, suppresses the person, and presents the extraction as glamour. The showdown between the studio's need for authenticity and its terror of it never produces a winner. It produces casualties. Bette Davis is one of the first to push back. She clashed with the system at every level, finally taking Warner Brothers to an English courtroom in 1936, characterizing the studio contract as tantamount to indentured servitude. She loses the case. Loses the Yahoo C, but the spectacle sends a tremor through the industry that no fixer can fully smooth. And the rising generation of method actors, Brando, Clift, Dean, are philosophically incompatible with manufactured personas. Their aesthetic is rooted in unwillingness to perform a self that isn't genuinely felt. They resist. They live publicly in ways the old system would have buried. Montgomery Clift's 1956 car crash produces one of the fixer system's last major operations and most revealing failures. The narrative can be managed. What cannot be managed is visible in Clift's changed face, in the devastated weight of his subsequent performances. The fixer controls the press release. He cannot control what the camera records in close-up. The truth gets into the frame. It always gets into the frame. Giotto. The cruel irony. The system's great irony is that the apparatus of control makes the art possible in measurable ways. The controlled environment produces performers with extraordinary technical command of the camera. The years of maintaining an approved self under maximum pressure gives certain stars an almost inhuman ability to project authentic emotion on demand, because the performance and the survival mechanism are the same skill. Crawford doesn't just act. She has been performing for her life for decades. The mythology of the Golden Age is substantially a product of the fixer system's success. The manufactured perfection, the carefully eliminated reality. This is the raw material of legend. We remember it as golden because the mess was cleaned up, because the truth was suppressed so effectively that what survived in the cultural imagination is pure image. The end of the empire. By the mid-1950s, the system is in irreversible decline. The Supreme Court's paramount decrees force studios to divest their theater chains, shattering the vertical monopoly that makes total control possible. Independent producers enter the market. European art cinema shows audiences that imperfection carries its own power. A new generation of entertainment journalists refuses the old compact with the press office. The fixers still work, but they work in a landscape that no longer grants them the same institutional authority. The crimes are never prosecuted. The women whose accusations were suppressed receive no justice. The gay stars coerced into fraudulent marriages are never legally recognized as victims. The doctors who chemically addicted teenage performers face no consequences. That total success, ensuring the past cannot hold anyone accountable, is the fixer system's most durable achievement. The techniques themselves never die. They evolve, migrate into the management of political careers and corporate reputations. The specific tools change. The logic remains constant. The fixer didn't invent the cover-up. He industrialized it, and the industrial model proves remarkably durable. The truth finds the frame. We keep coming back to these films. We watch the faces. We read the biographies. Part of the answer is obvious. The work is extraordinary, and it deserves to endure. But we are also drawn to the Golden Age precisely because we now understand what it cost. The gap between image and reality, the gap the fixer system spent decades maintaining, is not a source of disillusionment. It is a source of pathos. The great performances of the Golden Age are survival documents. Created by people told that their authentic selves are commercially dangerous, they nevertheless manage, through irrepressible humanity, to put something real on screen. The fixer tries to erase the person and leave only the image. The performer tries every day to keep being a person despite the image. The films are the record of that struggle. The studio devoted enormous resources to proving the person could be fully owned, fully controlled, fully erased. It failed, because the truth finds the frame. It always finds the frame. Next time you watch Garland, Crawford, or Gable, watch with everything you now know. Look for the moments that don't fit the approved narrative, the flickers of something unmanaged, the places where the person escapes the persona. The fixers worked very hard to give you a perfect dream. The performers worked harder to give you something true. That tension is the secret engine of every great film that survives from that era. If this is the kind of history that makes you lean forward, hit like and subscribe, because the stories Hollywood worked hardest to suppress are exactly the ones worth telling.